So this is the idea for today. And maybe Adam, could I ask you to start with sharing, what's been going on actually? Could you give a brief description of some of that?
Yeah, thanks, Henrik. Yeah, this is a little different. I think in the past, it's like, let's put on this whole presentation with PowerPoint slides and here's what's been going on. And we figured today, let's actually just share and invite people that have been part of that to share story and just have a conversation about it. So at a high level, kind of who, so Gabby and Linda and Henrik and myself have been working together now, I want to say since, man, could this have been January?
Yeah.
So January, and what we've been working on is, Onora is the name of the organization, but we're setting out to train 100 million people in gratitude-based learning. And so most of us here learned about the application of this for healing food systems and how gratitude-based learning can apply to helping heal food systems. But with Onora, we're also doing this with students who are wanting to learn about how to bring this into their lives and into their projects they're working on, really for environmental impact. We've been also bringing this to schools, to companies, and then just in personal lives. And so there's a lot of different areas in which we're like, gratitude-based learning can be applied to so many different areas. And Linda and Gabby both, I think it was after we did like a kickoff event of here's our direction for 2023, said, I want to get more involved. And so what we ended up doing was we had a one-on-one with each of them to get a sense of what do they want to get out of this, what worst possible outcome, best possible outcome, to make sure that whatever they'd be jumping into was going to be breathing life into everyone. And so what we then embarked on was essentially a cycle. Our CHIA framework, for this expansive framework to put gratitude-based learning into practice, that framework also guides essentially like our working groups. And so we have a 6-week cycle, a six-part cycle, where we're putting CHIA into practice to work on stuff. And so the first cycle is around discovering what's there and what's needed. And so Gabby and Linda both came in saying, I want to, I think this is where I can add value, I think. And so what we ended up doing, though, in that first cycle was discovering what's there and what's actually needed. And so for all of us, we thought that, all right, Linda was going to come in and it was fundraising. She's going to help us go raise money. She's going to help us bring this to investors. And Gabby has a project management background. She's going to help us manage the bajillion things going on. And what we discovered in that first cycle, that first part of the first cycle, was that what's actually needed was we needed to create an understanding of what is gratitude-based learning. And so the second part of the cycle is accelerate. So we have discover, accelerate, and inspire. And so what we then accelerated and created together was what is gratitude-based learning, like a physical document that we would be able to share with investors, that would be able to guide our website, that would be able to guide the way we pitched our programs, what we offered. And then inspire in that last cycle was, well, how are we getting this out there? How are we starting to share this? And we started to integrate this into more programs. And so that process, after that first 6-week cycle, we started to discover that there were different interests in the group. So some people were more lit up by working on a website, for example. Some were more excited by going to bring this to a school workshop or to go for funding. And so we started to, rather than have all of us on everything all at once, we essentially established working groups. And thankfully we learned to do this because people spoke up, like Linda, of like, hey, this part's getting me going more than this part. And so because of that feedback, we started to go into different working groups where we'd still meet as a whole unit once a week, but throughout the week, our working groups would be working on that cycle. And so that's kind of at a high level what we've been doing. And so a group together working on these cycles, and we meet as a whole unit, but then broken down into working groups that are focused on the different functions of how are we actually going to be training 100 million people in gratitude-based learning and scale at a massive stage. What we've all felt is pretty transformational.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an ambitious goal out there, but we absolutely believe it's possible. Later we'll get more into, what has actually come of this, how much have we have advanced in this time. But before that, maybe Linda, could I ask you to comment a little bit about what has this whole process been like for you? You know, getting, acquainted with Adam and Henrik, yeah, but then taking it to the next level. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was really, in reflecting on this, just such a beautiful process. I think the way that Adam and Henrik really set the initial container, there was a conversation I had with Adam at the beginning. I was in a career for a long time, and I had some fears of, I want to help, but I don't know if my skills are right. I don't know how much time I really want to dedicate. I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to not fit. I don't want to, make it harder on them. And Adam and I had just a really great exercise, very similar to gratitude-based learning, of really visioning what would this happen. Adam and I had the chance of being friends before this, and meeting, in San Diego. And I didn't want it to ruin our friendship in any way. So we went through this exercise of, what's the worst possible scenario of you joining our team, and what's the best scenario? And as we dug in, and Adam had a great way of just continuing to go deeper, and what else, and what else, and what else. And we really got to feel what great would look like, it just in ourselves, in individuals, not great in terms of an outcome. And, we're always in business looking at, what's the success in terms of the outcome. And it was all about how we showed up together and what would be great about that. And I'll say, after these couple of cycles, those visions came true, in the sense that the four of us are a form of a family, very similar to what we get in the food system, what we get in the accelerator group. But they're people I can count on, people I trust, people I can be honest with, people that are honest with me. And the process was more than I had expected. And what it's done, I know we'll talk more about ripples next, but what it's done in my life, and my ability to connect and work with other people and my own family members, it's been really a joy.
And could you elaborate maybe a little bit more on what's something that's been, let's say, bubbling up for you during this process? What's something you have discovered, or learned, or grown during this process?
So many things. I'm trying to pick one. I've definitely learned that I've become much more comfortable with curiosity, with being safe in asking curious questions, as long as you're grounded in gratitude. So I've been doing that with different things. I think, it's also extended in terms of reaching out to people. So like Brooke would know, my ability to reach out to you and want to help you has a lot to do with what's happened in this group for me. And then what's happened for me internally, the relationships that I have, some really close ones with my daughters, my mom, and my boyfriend, just handling those differently, and truly coming to gratitude and being more curious with what's going on in myself, which is kind of jumping the gun in terms of ripple effects. But there's been ripple effects externally. There's certainly ripple effects within our container, but there's been a lot of ripple effects for me personally too. Yeah.
We'll get to the ripple effects, but I'm also very curious here, Adam. What has it actually been like, that whole process of bringing people in? I remember that was, we know them so and so far, and what's going to change? There's a lot of dynamics in play here. What has it been like for you to experience this process of bringing more people in?
At first, really scary. At first, it's almost like you raise a baby, and it's like, at what point does the baby get out in the world? Are other people now involved in raising the child? And that's kind of what it's been, this process of letting go. That's the short answer, this process of letting go. A little bit more to that, though, what the process of letting go has been really fun, because what's allowed me to let go has been us showing up and continuing to connect and collaborate. And so by us continuing to meet, rather than me, let's say there's a document or there's something for us to do, usually it'd be Adam doing everything. That's kind of where I was coming from. Adam would do everything. And now we're shifting into a world where it's not just Adam and then everyone else. It's no, we are creating this thing. And so by us continuing to meet, by the time it's like, hey, we need to create this thing, it allows me to not go into, hey, Adam, now you need to do this, because my old conditioning was, well, if someone else was going to do this, you would have to then onboard them, and they would have to call it, get what's going on. And just by nature of us meeting and sharing friction with each other, asking questions, by the time those things would come up, it wasn't like a letting go process. It was passing the baton to a teammate. Yeah.
So, yeah, wondering, Adam, would it be appropriate to ask you a little bit about what's been bubbling up for you? What's something you have, let's say, evolved over this time? Because I've seen you, for more than a year now, but I also dare say that your personal development has gone like, yeah, it's getting somewhat exponential. So I will give a lot of credit here to Linda and Gabby as well, this whole process. But could you speak into some of what have been evolving for you over these last 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, well, it actually ties into all four of us. So the fact that we said yes to people wanting to, which is such amazing, that people are like, I want to give time in my life to be working on this together, which in the first place is like, that's incredible. So the fact that those situations create opportunities where I would feel friction, and then that you're there for us to then sit with that and do a Psych K balance on things, to then get to then apply that into scenarios and have that feedback loop quickly. Yeah, the impact has been huge. Mm-hmm. So if it was all theoretical, I don't know what would have really changed. Like, we had a chance to actually practice stuff. It wasn't all just theory. Mm-hmm. Some of the pieces, because there's been a lot, some of the things that have really shifted. Wow, it has been a lot. So there's been this feeling of, I'll just start with one that feels pretty big. There's been this feeling of, when we're working on the website, for example, and there's like 100 pages for us to do. There's this ongoing list of there's stuff to do. This feeling that, yes, you'd finish something, but it's not enough. It's a drop in the bucket. It's not really making a difference. Or I've had this one conversation. Is that enough? Is that really making a difference? And I didn't like that feeling. I could say like, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, because you asked me that question when I was feeling really overwhelmed. It was, what are you grateful for? And I was like, I can say all this gratitude stuff in my head, but I'm not actually feeling it in my body. And so what we balanced was, how do I actually, like, I wanted to feel it in my body, not just think it in my head. And so one of the things that happened was, to feel that gratitude in my body, I have to see and celebrate the positive ripples everywhere. So what we started doing on the team was, at the end of finishing a thing, even when we decided of, here's the thing we're going to focus on, before we decided we're going to focus on this website page instead of the 10 other pages, typical Adam would have been, all right, now we got to go to the next stuff. We got to now go create that page. But just the fact that we decided we're going to focus on this page and not the 10 other things, what are the positive ripples of that? And to literally see that, so that, and it shifted everything. And so then we brought that into the end of our cycles. And so at this point, we've done 2 cycles as a team. So 2 of those 6-week cycles. And at the end of the first cycle, we started to get that feedback that like, hey, I know we've made a bunch of stuff happen. Like we've done a bunch of stuff, but I'm not feeling that gratitude. I'm not feeling those positive ripples. So in the second cycle, what we started to do is literally celebrate the positive ripple, like of one another, like because of Gabby, because of Henrik, because of Linda, because of Adam. And we started to literally share that with, which was like it was powerful. So I guess long-winded way of saying, like, started to put into practice what we've been preaching, which is a good reminder that we could, like, this is not just, oh, we have everything figured out and now we're packaging it up for other people to go do. This is something that we're practicing ourselves, and we're finding more and more scenarios where we get to practice this. And so these working groups have essentially been like a crash course in gratitude-based learning for ourselves, because we're finding there's just so many friction points, or like touch points, those interaction points where friction or flow can occur, which is allowing us to have a really quick application of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I absolutely believe that you're touching in on something that makes this whole program rather special, because we have some beautiful theory, some philosophy, and we are not only teaching that, we are putting it into practice, also in the food system, also in the accelerator group. And what's even more beautiful is that we have this whole community, which is a support. You're not alone in this. And I really truly believe that's one of the keystones in what makes the difference, that we actually dare to apply it. And there's going to be friction ever so often. But yeah, Linda, I'm curious, maybe you could speak into some piece of friction, or maybe something that happened during this process that you would like to highlight.
Yeah, I was just thinking of kind of 2 things. I've, even though in business, I have had no problem, giving feedback, through the feedback loops if I needed to for my team or whatever. But personally, I had problems really giving friction or sitting with friction. It's very common for me to just sort of eat it, whatever I'm feeling, just kind of eat it and let it go. And there was some friction early on with something that was going on, and we were working on a grant together, and there was a lot of back and forth and comments and things. And I just, be honest, at one point I thought, and it's my own stuff, right? We all come to this table with our own stuff and our own filters and whatever's happened. And I was feeling like I wasn't being heard. And it was bringing up my stuff. It didn't really matter in this process whether I was heard or not, and it wasn't right or wrong, but I just wasn't feeling heard. So I wanted to withdraw, and I wanted to just like hide a little-ish, and these are all subtle things that you do, right? You still show up for meetings or whatever, but maybe you don't say as much, or maybe you just, listen more or something. And I think I shared with Henrik sort of what was going on, and he encouraged me to share, and I shared, and it made a big difference. Like, it was really difficult for me because it felt so stupid, right? Like, I don't feel heard, and it was so celebrated, and it ended up making a huge impact. And if, for me, it was honestly because Adam's the lead, it was with Adam, and it was important to me that I be heard, and I got to share this, and he just literally celebrated it, and it blew my mind. And it wasn't fake or anything. It was like, oh my God, like, I am so glad you shared that. And then, I think we got through that a little bit, and he just let me share, and then things happened for him later that kind of bubbled up, that I started to see the ripples of why it was so important to share that friction and what it did to the process and changing. And and sometimes I feel like I'm the person in the group that brings up the friction, like kind of like, well, you said you didn't want to do this, you said this, and so that, that brought up that. Like I said, I didn't want to be part of the website group because it gave me a lot of friction. So every time I seem to say something which I would interpret as negative or something I'm not supposed to share, so I'm supposed to keep it inside, it has created positive ripples. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Huge shout out to you for finally, sharing those gold nuggets. And it is gold nuggets, also because, we have more or less consciously taken that decision. We are looking for those, right? In any situation, whatever happens with anybody, we're looking for those positive ripple effects. And so, Adam, maybe I could ask you to share a little bit of what has happened, what's the outcome, or what these processes of bringing in Gabby and Linda, what has it manifested into? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I want to just touch on what Linda just shared. So there's been a lot of positive ripple effects because of that. One of the things I've learned from this process is the importance of talking about, like, how did those positive ripples come about? Like the fact that Linda shares the friction, the fact that we're there in one-on-one call, like that process, that's something that we're trying to learn of, kind of what's making, the tip of the iceberg is the stuff we can see, but all the other stuff of like what's actually allowing all that to become possible is what we've been noting, because we want as much of that as possible. And so some of the outcomes of this, well, when we started this process, we had no idea about these cycles. So we do a really good job here of, in hindsight, telling a story that's like, oh, we have this process when we started, and this is what we're going to do. And the truth of it is none of that existed when we started. So this clarity of, oh, we're going to have this working group, and this is the cycle we're going to be on, and it actually is going to happen to just follow Chia exactly, and that didn't exist when we started. We discovered in hindsight that we had set a 6-week container because we said, we're not just going to do this indefinitely. You want to contribute time? Great. Let's set a date of 6 weeks. And at that point, let's celebrate wherever we're at. And in hindsight, we realized we discovered this process for people to get involved. So on the first front, there have been more people that have reached out, whether it's companies or people that are like, I want to bring this to India, or I want to bring this to my network of schools. We now have a process to fall back on. So that's been incredible, is that anyone that says, I want to now go do a workshop at our company or a workshop at our school, rather than being like, all right, how are we going to do this? We actually now have a process of doing that it just flows. And that's incredible. The second thing is we discovered a process actually on how to create together. Meaning the grant story that Linda was mentioning about how we had a grant that we were to get out. I would say the old way was, let's say someone writes the grant, or maybe 2 people put in their thoughts, and it's like, whose words do you think are better? My words, their words, whose words are better? And then we choose, and then it's this voting, and then someone feels not heard. What we discovered was, how can we tap a process to tap into the diversity of a group when we're creating anything? So instead of it being my words and Linda's words and Henrik's words and Gabby's words, when creating anything new, we discovered people need to sit with the friction. So go write and I'll use the example of a grant. If we're going to do another grant, instead of everyone write differently and we're voting, choose people that are going to sit with that friction and see what bubbles up. And so people are coming to the table with drafts, but also, and that's what flowed. That's what came up. And it's okay if all you had was one line that flowed up, but then you come with the friction. And then coming together, and instead of voting of, do you like this, do you like that? It's a curiosity conversation around what's behind that. So then the person that's going to take that document, like that's going to be, call it the final draft person, they're not voting on this language or that language. They're actually there to listen to what's actually behind the words, because actual words are going to change depending on who writes what, whether it's a grant, whether it's a website, whether it's an article, whether it's a speech, whatever outcome there, the words are going to be different. But what's important is that the essence of what someone wants to get across is heard. And so, yeah, that essence. And so this sounds like in hindsight, maybe like a simple thing, but pretty profound and as a process. So now we know when anything is going to get created moving forward, we now have a process to fall back on. I'm just looking at my notes here, some other of the biggies. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm thinking the same thing with the, just the teaching. I mean, just as Adam led a workshop in Taiwan with a school in Taiwan, an international university of German, French, English students. And first of all, it was so amazing to watch this over Zoom and watch the kids like who came in like typical maybe teenagers would, and cold and reserved and self-conscious, and start interacting with each other and start sharing around gratitude and starting to solve their problem. But Adam was going to, you know, he's done this a lot. He was just going to do it. He was just going to boom, 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 boom. And I've witnessed the friction of like, well, I think I want some help, but I really want help in a certain way. And I want it to show up a certain way. But we just kept bouncing back and forth. And, you know, it's 15 minutes here or 15 minutes there, maybe an hour there. And I really believe because we collaborated, which was kind of the next thing, as you were talking, this whole ripple effect of really understanding that truly collaborating in a genuine way makes such a difference and makes a much better product at the end. Where in business, it just doesn't seem totally genuine sometimes, or at least it didn't in my career. This concept of collaboration. I mean, because we do it from, I don't know where it comes from, but it just seems more real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just wanted here to say welcome to Jay from the United Kingdom, and Douglas or Glenn from Colorado joined us as well.
Yay.
But here, maybe it's a good opportunity to open up if there's any comments or questions you would like to ask so far before we move on. What's in your space about what we've been sharing so far? What comes to you when you hear what we are sharing here so far? I'd like to get a feel.
Well,
Brooke, yeah, please.
yeah. So I'm just the impact of what you're talking about and looking at this mosaic of brilliant minds collaborating with openness and no agenda for a result, but collaborating together to the betterment of whatever it is that you're creating is just mind-boggling. I feel, I mean, Linda, as you mentioned this about business, there's always an agenda, and it seems to be, hi, Gabby. There's always an agenda, and it always is undermined by money and all of those things. Whereas it seems to me that what you guys have been doing, the four of you, is allowing this process to produce something that you don't even know necessarily what that is going to be, but it is magnificent. So I just, the what everybody has to offer is so different in this group, and all of you, and each one has something incredibly beautiful to contribute, and you're all recognizing that, and you're allowing it to come together. And that's kind of what I was feeling, and I just find it, it's so beautiful. So thank you for sharing all of this. It's just gorgeous. Thanks.
Absolutely, Brooke. I think you nailed it right there, that if we have a problem, we could see, no, this is the solution, right? Then we're fixed already there in what we're trying to create. And so reverse engineering this somehow is, let's say, no, let's aim for something that's unimaginably amazing, right? And how to go about that. You take the whole system back a few steps there. But yeah, wanted to say welcome to Gabby. You have something to share here as well, beyond a beautiful smile. You've been part of this process, and we've been going around, what's it like and some of the ripple effects happening. But if you had to highlight something from this experience, let's say, so other people, if they would like to join, what's coming for them?
Well, I love where I came in to all this, and hearing Brooke's thoughts, because that actually triggered a thought in my head, a positive ripple effect, that we have learned to be okay with not knowing the result. We have a big picture idea. And that's really something we can apply to life as well. It's like sometimes we're stuck in situations where we just don't know, but we have to make a decision. And so following that intuition and just being like, okay, this feels good, so let's just see what we can create out of it, without expectations, without attachments. It's just flowing. And then when we have the friction, we address it and then continue moving forward. And so yeah, I'd have to say, like, one of the biggest highlights for me, and I just realized it right now, is that becoming more okay with not knowing, and just following your heart, following that intuition. And it's just like that inner guidance of like, okay, this feels good to go in this direction. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. And I'm so happy to feel that when you are joining these meetings, it's there's something there that's pulling you that direction. That can be felt, right? That we're not here in this space and just doing whatever. We are really engaged, and so many positive vibes in these spaces. Wanted to go back to Adam. Time is running here, so we need to wrap it up a little bit. Could you also give some ideas for where we're going with this? What is something that we are asking of the community or putting out there as opportunities?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we're in between cycles right now. So where we're at is what we learned after we did our first 2 cycles back to back with no space in between. We just kept rolling. What we're discovering is we need space in between our cycles. And what we're doing is today kind of sharing what this is about for people that want to join into the next cycle. And we will share some of those working groups. But we basically, in our next cycle, we'll have another set of working groups, and let us know if that's something you're interested in joining and becoming part of. And so then the next cycle, there'll be an opportunity to jump in on those working groups. And basically every other month, we'll have another cycle going. So think of it as 6 weeks. Week 7, we share what we're discovering. Week 8, the people that are interested can reach out. Week 9, we'll put people on the different working groups, and week 10, we start a cycle again. And so think of that in the kind of the simplest terms of how we're flowing. And so, yeah, the next step from here is reach out if you are interested in getting involved. It's as simple as that. And what it'll look like is a one-on-one to we'll have I think next week we'll figure out a date, but a combination of this is what's about, what you would actually be signing up for. And then if the answer is yes from there, then it'd be a one-on-one to, like we did with Gabby and Linda, of what do you want to get out of this? What worst possible outcome, best possible outcome, making sure that this is something that's breathing life into you. Because that's first and foremost, this needs to be something that's breathing life into your life experience. And so that's the start of it, and then we'll jump in.
Adam, we have the link or the contact information for that. I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
Yes, it's as simple right now as it could be a WhatsApp or an email to Henrik or myself. That's the simplest next step. And if someone doesn't have that, or is just like listening to this recording and doesn't have that, going on the Onora's website, which is just ONORA, onoraglobal.com. And yeah,
You'll find us.
you'll find it.
But to give people some kind of direction of what's going on, where are we going? Where are we? Or can we see some road ahead of us?
Good clarification. Yeah, so we'd set out the audacious idea to train 100 million people in gratitude-based learning. And so, like Gabby said, that's the intention. That's where we're going. We're kidding ourselves if we know that what we're doing now, the roadmap is exactly going to be the way right now, what we're sensing into. And if we're visiting this next year, who knows, maybe it's going to evolve. It probably will. Right now, what it looks like is we have training programs, workshops, and one-on-one coaching. And so if you as an individual are like, I want to bring this into my life, and you're a student, we have a training program for students and training programs for adults that are passionate about healing the food system. Those are our two training programs that we have. Beyond that, if you're like, hey, I want to bring this to my company, or I want to bring this to my town, or there's a group that I want to bring this to, our introduction to training is workshops. So we have a workshop series, and if you're interested in this, we'll come and we can do an info session to share a little bit more. And if you're like, all right, this is something that my organization would actually want, or my community would want, or my company would want, my school would want, we have a workshop series. And if the workshops are like, you know what, we actually want a deeper dive into this, we want more support in this, we have a training program that we can roll out in the organization as well.
Linda?
I just have to add in, do you see how Gabby's like just sending out the email, sending out the website as Adam's talking? Like, this is like an example of how awesome she is. But we would, get in our ideas or up here and before we know it, we'd finish a call and Gabby'd have a document done. And we'd be like, what? And then she'd like have a visual of something that sort of explained it all and then send it out to us to like comment on. It's like, and we ended up doing just this, this exercise that I had taught in the past about colors and different personalities, and just for fun. But it was so interesting how everything was like perfectly orchestrated, and yet, not necessarily the way we had all envisioned. But I just had to call that out. And of course, as you already probably all know, I have to just throw this in, that Henrik was always the magician behind the curtain, right? The Wizard of Oz, right? He was just like magically taking it all in, and then he'd say some profound statement that would tie it all together, or he'd keep us all grounded in Psych K. Literally just an angel on earth, keeping it all together. It was amazing.
Thank you. But I wanted to touch on something there, Linda, because you brought something into this space, right? With these personality tests, there's a new dimension now in our understanding of how do we make good teams, right?
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things, let's say, if somebody would like to get involved, it's not just, let's say, you need to sweat for Honora. Right? We really want to offer something back in whatever way we can so far. And so, yeah, getting involved, getting to know more about yourself, finding that support for your own growth as well, and how to fit in, it's really amazing. So yeah, we'd like to just open up and see if there are comments. I see Glenn, he has something in the chat. Would you like to elaborate on that, or Gavin?
Well, as you know, I've been kind of down this road for 14 years now. Work on various aspects of community and the things that support it and make it somewhat independent. What you're doing here, I see as a pillar that I will add. You know, it's like a arrow in the quiver that I can use and go to when I am working with people that let's say what you offer here is something that they are lacking that would facilitate a growth for them and a better function of the whole, since I work with holistic goals. This week alone has been amazing, and as I jumped on here because some of the people I'm talking to are going to need what you have to offer so they can expand their communications and understand how it all fits together. So that's kind of how I see what you're doing for me personally, because well, my wife's in Dallas right now with people out of Kansas City. I had 3 other cities open up this week. I had Moscow, Idaho get on board, and they're all wanting to kind of pursue this independent community aspect. And the big part of that is the spiritual, let alone the body and how food plays into it, but also the spiritual part that goes with it. And the communicating with love and a passion and being able to communicate with people is a real base for all of that. So I just wanted you to know, I see it as a quiver that I'm going to be shooting at people lovingly, obviously.
More of that. Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
That does tie
This
into.
is actually
That's a little awesome. That's the little otters do that, or the seals. They're sweet when they do that. They go to you once you feed them more. I know that's great.
That actually ties into an idea we were talking about. Our group was talking about earlier this morning was having a Colorado hub, since we have quite a few Coloradians around that have gone through the program and understand, you know, what we're trying to do here. It'd be nice to maybe start our first hub for Honora, and the first place can be potentially Colorado.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna put that out there in the universe and see how it comes to fruition.
Yeah, let's see that happen. I would love to. Just here, there's a little bit of time left, and we can go into after party. We can have more fun, but wanted to open up that question of, if you had to bring this into your space of what you are doing in your situation, company, family, organization, what is something that this could bring to you, right? We could say, wouldn't it be amazing if this or that would happen, right? What do you see as possibilities for if we come together, if we start to collaborate, support, and make something even more amazing than what we could imagine right now? What could you see a role happening here? Eric? Is there something in your space?
No, I just put in the chat, wouldn't it be amazing if, right before you said it. So
oh, sorry.
My mind. Yeah.
Read my mind.
Yeah, same wavelength.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like, wouldn't it be amazing if this totally changes the way all of humanity communicates? I had a call with Mark Croning earlier this week, had a great conversation with him, and his whole thing is what we're focusing on really determines our actions. So right now we live in a very extractive, profit-minded, financially gain first system, which is not sustainable. And because of that, that really determines all of our actions. But if we were to shift and the goal was community, if the goal was love, if the goal was gratitude, if the goal was being at peace with ourselves, totally different results will flow out of that. And gratitude-based learning, I believe, could get us there. Will get us there. So
Yeah.
wouldn't it be amazing if the whole world adopted this?
Yeah, I just have to share, I had the same thought early on this, and I think it's when I reached out, but you can quickly, and Eric, in your business, I know for me, I quickly saw, oh my gosh, what if this was part of our training at our company? And then, oh my gosh, what if this is in schools? Oh my gosh, what if this is, and then walking down the street, just meeting people, what if everyone knew about this and practiced it? Every single interaction would be different. And that's how we started. It's so easy to think about what if, that it's easy to get to 100 million people, right? It sounds like such a big goal, but it's easy to see how it could go everywhere.
Isn't it something about how many people you know and those people they know, and go 6 ripples out, then you covered the whole world, something like that? It's insane, right? Adam, I saw you had your hand up. Is it still, or should we pass it to Brooke?
Just wouldn't it be amazing if we can bring this into just our micro interactions? And yeah, but wouldn't it be amazing if this could be brought into our micro interaction? It's just a habit at this point. Just so much to celebrate. Because even before this, during lunch, my wife had just gotten off a work call, and she said, I put gratitude-based learning into practice. And I was like, what do you mean? And there was a client that had nothing short of like a fire sale, of like those clients, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. And Allie was like, instead of going down all right, I need to now go fix this, I need to do this, I need to do that, she's like, who's impacted by this? Like, I'm not alone in that. Who's impacted by this? And instead of her shouldering everything on her own, she reached out to one of the other people that would have been impacted by this, and just had a curiosity conversation, rather than like, we need to freak out. And my goodness, is the whole direction shifted. Her energy shifted, but also the outcome shifted. So we in our trainings, we sometimes lead to like, this is a big project we're doing on. How do we apply this to our company? How do we apply this to big stuff? But those little interactions, the micro stuff, wouldn't it be amazing if we saw that more quickly?
So before passing it to you, Brooke, you'll be the last one with the comment here. I cheated you all for the breathing exercise in the beginning, and that's because I have a little meditation for you here before we transition into the after party. A little gift, a little something special today. So, Brooke, please.
So I was just going to follow up on basically what Linda was saying, because as you know, Henrik, and just as a ripple effect, Tandy, Michelle, and Casey are here because of what I saw in this program and wanted to bring to a totally different community, because I see the possibilities of this actually being applied to every single person on the globe who certainly is a part of this particular organization that we all met on. And so in terms of, I have from the very beginning seen these possibilities that we're talking about as being transformational for humanity. But just right now, Tandy, Michelle, and Casey are here because of ripple effects. So I just wanted to pass that on. So yes, thank you guys. And thank you guys for having trusted to join this, Tandy, Michelle, and Casey.
Yeah, there's been some absolutely amazing evolvements, evolutioning happening on individual levels, but also collectively here, coming together. And so this thing about imagining that extraordinary future, remember that we are all cells in a big body, right? All one somehow. but it starts with ours, right? All of you here, you have been going into that personal, let's say, evolution. You've been on that quest of finding some friction and making it better, or discovering something together. So if I could ask you to start dreaming with me here, I'll lead you in a little meditation, and just be sitting and have your eyes open. That's okay. You can be daydreaming. That's all right. You can also close your eyes. And it's simply getting conscious about your breath and consciously breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than usually. Finding that rhythm that's good for you. A little bit slower and a little bit deeper than usual. And when you have that, direct your attention to the area of your chest. Connect with your heart. This old friend of yours hasn't had a coffee break in so and so long. Time to give it a little bit of gratitude here. Keeping that rhythm of breathing. Just observe whatever you find in your space. Any thoughts, any friction, trouble, turmoil. Allow it to be whatever it is, and let it go. Invite it in. Allow it to be whatever it is, and let it go. Keep breathing with that same rhythm. Connect with your heart. Just discover what's there. Any tension, any friction. Allow it to be whatever it is, and let it go. And please know that you are loved, fully accepted, fully enough, just the way you are. Fully accepted, fully enough, just the way you are. Just like we have two legs, this is only first step. Time to take the next step of who you could become. What is your potential? Tap into what's actually possible. Anything is possible. Take a moment, keep breathing, and identify that new version of yourself out there, just a little bit into the future. And when you're there, be conscious about the space in between where you are now and that future. What is one little step you need to take to initiate that journey? Identify the first step. And who is someone you can reach out to for help and support? How to get started with that first step. When you're there, just slowly come back to this space.
Uh-oh, Gabby's writing.
Too much came up, you know.
Oh yeah, there'll be a document.
I'm just glad to see her back. I haven't seen her in months.
I know, it's so good to see you. I've been busy.
You've been busy.
All righty.
Well,
Yes,
Thank
I
you so
agree
much.
with Brooke. That was
well
great.
that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. No, and I'm all for this Colorado hub thing. That's a good idea.
Mhm.
This is what I wrote. Well, it's backwards, but
Oh,
Hello.
yeah.
I didn't tell you I was clairvoyant, Gavin. So
You
be
knew.
careful what you
I'm on to you.
Oh boy. Welcome to the after party, you guys.
think.
Here we're just chilling now and have some fun, and floor is open for comments and thoughts and ideas and friction and flow, all within these.
Well, I've got a question for Ronaldo. You thought you were going to drop in and hide out back there. That's not going to happen. But last time we talked, you were looking at multi-use of land space within solar panel areas and those types of things. How is that coming along? Has any of that come to fruition?
You need to unmute yourself. Is that possible? Yep.
Double
got
muted. There we go. Howdy, folks.
Hey.
It's been a while. I miss y'all. Doug, thanks for the question. Well, excitingly enough, I was a little bit bummed today, but very excited because we were supposed to get sheep for our first solar site today, but weather wasn't so great, and so we're bringing them on Monday. So we're going to start a one season pilot in 2 sites. They are 1 megawatt sites each, and so we're going to have 2 flocks of sheep in 2 of our sites, and hopefully that's the start of 30 more sites after that. So if our pilot goes well, that should be a good kickoff.
Oh wow.
Absolutely excellent. Good job.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to reach out to a few of you folks that are in Colorado. I went to Colorado about 3 weeks ago, but for a really short stint, I went to Denver for a 3-week like full intense workshop, and then I went to Jack Solar Garden where they had the full-on agrivoltaic center. Brooke, I thought of you, but again, very intense. I barely slept throughout the whole week, but it was amazing to finally see it in person. Hopefully that's good. That's another longer down the route project. I want to build one similar like that in Western Massachusetts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well
Oh,
done.
boy. That
I can't believe you were
that's close to the only crime that I can think of.
I know.
because that was Arnaldo. I am seriously not 5 minutes away from death.
Wow.
5 minutes.
Well, I'll send over a link. They got a pretty cool party going on soon over
Yes.
there.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the
Thanks.
party?
I'll share it over on the WhatsApp group.
Mhm.
Folks on the WhatsApp? I
Yes,
guess so.
please
Sure, sure,
do.
sure.
All right,
I'm-
we'll do.
I'm coming there in June, and I want to see you all. I'm going to make all my stops in Colorado.
Hey,
Nice.
Fantastic.
wow. Amazing. Such a gift. Things are happening. What else is in your spaces out there? What was something you were dreaming of? What came up for you? You dare to share?
What came up for me was I was envisioning what's currently a feeling of you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, like you're jumping around to a bunch of different things. What was coming up was me being present, like fully in the things that I'm doing, not being like, what else? And so what came up is what's a step to take is making a list. Like I have a list of all the different stuff, but the next step is, Henrik, we've got to talk about, yeah. And that was really helpful though, to think of what's one step and one person to talk to. That was really helpful it took away so much pressure. And yeah, read this book called I think it's called The $1 Billion Coach. It's about the
Mhm.
coach to the CEO of Twitter. It was coach CEO of Twitter, the CEO of Google, and even when he was coaching his kids' soccer practice, it was like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm here at soccer practice. When I'm with you coaching at Twitter, I'm coaching there. And so it's really admired that.
It is, we need some sort of direction out there, but we also need to be clear about what are the next few imminent steps. And I will never ever forget this, because when I was back in agriculture school back in Denmark, that was in 19. As the seniors there, we were guiding the juniors, and they were out there with these, oh, I want to be a farmer and I want to have so and so and so and so and so. Okay. And I just took them to where we have this flight of stairs between the two, first floor and second floor. And yeah, I illustrated it best like this, you're talking about this out there. Those are those steps up there at the top, right? But if you haven't identified those down here, how do you get up there, right? And so that's how do we become aware of this? We put it out. Casey, please.
Oh, Tandy had her hand up first.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
Tandy.
Okay. Now I was going to say what Adam said, but when we have set our priorities and we focus on one thing and we're present in that moment, we get a lot more done. And our relationships improve. Obviously, our communication skills, because you're working on that all the time now compared to before. But our relationships improve. That's what's so valuable, because life is about people. And then our tasks flow and everything flows. Yeah.
What I was going to say was I really resonate with what Adam was saying, kind of about priorities and trying to be present in one thing. And I probably have some shell shock from, corporate America of like, your job is your life and your life actually doesn't matter to your job. And so I have this like, I don't know that it's a fear, but I would probably say it is, to really getting into a new job and trying to balance the work-life balance, because I haven't been successful at that. I believe it's possible. So when you were saying what's the first step and who's the first person, I mean, I see this thing that I want, or I can feel it out there, but like the steps just disappear. Like it's just up there, right? And there's like no steps to get to that thing up there. So I really kind of was just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is, right? But then if you sit with that and you say, okay, why don't I know what that is? Or why don't I have a clue at what direction to go, or something like that? Then hopefully like that friction will come and you can sit in it and try to figure out if you can rebuild those steps, right? Or build them or something along those lines. So that, I think it was really helpful for me to just, I get where I'm at between that, but just that path it's just not quite there. So
there's ripple effects happening right here. Glenn.
One of the things I ran into personally this week, and I think it's probably a trap we all fall into. I mean, you were talking about corporate America, and Eric was talking about, we're so capitalist oriented and everything else, which, there's a part of that we have to, I mean, even this organization has got to get in that. We've got to stay funded enough. If you're not keeping enough funds going to cover the overhead, you're not going to be sustainable. That's just a fact of life. But at the same time, in the communications that we're doing here, what I noticed this week was that the transparency and just being open to take the risk and share what you know and how you're trying to communicate with people for the greater good has got to override all of it. And sometimes that takes squelching your own personal desires or areas where you could make money at, or you could profit your name or get things going out there. I mean, I think that's part of it, but if you let that drive you, then I think we'll miss the overall goodness that we're looking for. It's probably an understatement or overstatement or whatever. I see all the heads nodding going, oh yeah, that's sure. But when you get on the one-on-one conversation someplace and you go, oh yeah, well, if this guy buys into what I'm telling him, there's like a $150,000 donation sitting behind that head nod. So, maybe that's what's driving what I'm doing. And it's kind of something you just have to kind of be aware of, that I have had to be aware of, because we all get hungry for being able to fund what we're doing. And that's not the end goal we're looking for.
Linda?
Oh, I was just going to share, and I resonate a lot with that too, Douglas. But I was just going to share the visualization, and I didn't know what would come up, but I was teaching. I was in an auditorium teaching this, and I don't know what I saw. Everything. I was wearing jeans and boots and a hat, and I think not a suit. And then I got a little stuck with. I mean, I know this is kind of the future, that there's just going to be opportunities to teach this, and I got a little stuck with where's the first place, like who's the first, place to go. And then I don't know if Eric is still on, but I envisioned, someone, Adam, maybe me teaching next year at the conference we were at, or speaking about it. I just see the next step is sharing this and teaching this.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's this one.
We should probably explain where this came from. I know maybe some of you saw the piece, but so Adam, as you know, talks with his hands, and he was doing this the other day, and it's, I guess, the Italian in him. I don't know that he's really Italian, but he thinks he is. And then
I'm not.
And then he started, he was like, well, I just really, and he's doing this. And so we've turned this means, as you know, more with kids and babies. So this means more, but it's also clapping. So it's celebrating and more. So that's what this is about when you see us. And then we're always like, this is the chia, and it always turns into like this, right? The love.
Yeah, I couldn't contain myself in our meeting. I was like, sometimes things click and I just get really excited and I just started freaking out, and the rest is history.
Yeah. But hooray for Adam here, because he always insisted in recording the meetings, and we had not just recorded all of it. I mean, we wouldn't have had the chance to capture that beautiful moment. So,
well, that I think is a cool thing to bring up. This piece of even just how today was very different. It wasn't just one person standing up there with PowerPoint slides. And usually on these Friendly Fridays, there's this presentation of an idea. And I mean, kudos to Eric, who went first into this space to share an idea. It takes a lot. It can be a lot of pressure to feel like I have to tell my story, right? At the end of our programs, or like, what did we learn? What did we discover? And we want a way to share that. And let's think of the ripple effects that come from sharing our story. But it can feel like a lot of pressure to be like, all right, I'm writing an article, or I'm creating a video, or I'm making a graphic, or whatever it may be. And one story that's had a ton of ripple effects was literally a 90-second recording of Charlie just in a conversation, just talking. And so that's something that we're exploring now, is how can we make this experience of telling story, sharing story, less overwhelming? Because take, for example, a school that does awesome stuff, a company that does awesome stuff, you think, oh, I gotta go write this whole story, then send it to our marketing department, then this, and next thing you know, it's this big production. How do we make it really simple for story to be captured and shared? And just having a curiosity conversation and recording it is one way we're finding that I can make that process simpler, but super, super effective.
mm-hmm.
So if you have ideas on that too, right? Like you finished a project, you finished a program, and we want to share those stories, like actively looking for ideas in that space of what wouldn't just have an impact, but the experience has to be breathing life into you. Like we're recording this right now, and this is fun. Like this is just fun. So right, that's what we mean by like breathing life in. When you envision you sharing story in that way, if it's not breathing life into you, how can we expect it to breathe life into someone else? And thank you to Henrik for being the first person to share that the surveys that we do, for some people they might get them going, but when we were starting to expand our facilitators, I was like, hey, voice notes are way easier than filling out a survey every time. And so the more people speak up about what would be fun for them, value adding for them, not just a drag, even though a survey would be, that data, it's easier to analyze that data across projects. Making sure we're sharing that friction ideas is really, really key.
Yeah. What other ripples are happening here? What happened here? We are connected somehow, but could we try to track some of those ripple effects that happened? And should we shout out here to Arnaldo as well, because one of the first people that actually showed up and tried out something that we couldn't hardly tell what was, right? And so because he did that, we could actually say that we are here today, all of us. Could you imagine? It started with Arnaldo. Yeah, yeah, you were shaking your head.
So I want to celebrate the process that he taught us. So because Arnaldo went first, so we have no shortage of crazy ideas. And if you share a crazy idea with the world too quickly, like, then everyone's like, you are absolutely a crazy person. So Arnaldo going first was us, in hindsight, we ended up learning a process of how to, what we call like microdosing that vulnerability, microdosing that stress, so that we can share more broadly. And so, yep, we found crazy idea that made sense to one person, to like ourselves. And then I found Henrik, another person that could bring this to, and it had to make sense to at least two people. And then Arnaldo and Aaron, we're like, we know this is a half-baked cookie. We know this isn't fully all together, but 80% makes enough sense, 20% of friction, and we have no idea. Like, let's just be in that together. And thanks to their feedback, we're able to offer then our first cohort of people that knew this was the first time we're really putting this out as this formal program. But you're going first, and we're co-creating this together, and it's since evolved since then. But it starts with we got to microdose that, and someone has to go first. So yeah, Arnaldo, thank you.
And in case you didn't know, Arnaldo, that story about you slamming the brakes outside that neighbor of yours, it is such a good story, and I've told it so many times, and I think it has helped so many people because you dared to share that story. I really love it because I can visualize it. Yeah, Arnaldo driving by that neighbor so many times, seeing that there's stuff going on in that garden is really interesting. And because I'm supposed to have my curiosity conversation over here with somebody completely different, but now, hey, I see the neighbor there, slam the brakes, go and have that conversation right now. Curious, Arnaldo, what happened since? What come from that?
Yeah, well, now I'm not double muted. Okay. Interestingly enough, for some reason, I kind of didn't meet up again with that neighbor for a while. But as I had mentioned, I proposed to my neighbor because he's I don't know, about 10 minutes away. But anyway, I proposed to a neighbor that's right in front of my street, that I would help her with her orchard. She's got 2 apples and 4 Asian pears. She's probably 70 years old, and he doesn't have kids around. And so I said, all right, I'll help you take care of your trees if you give me some crops, some of those apples and pears. And now this year I'm starting the veggie patch with her. So she is helping me. I'm setting up 2 raised beds, and we're starting our neighborhood community garden. And this week on Monday, for some weird reason, it had been more than 6 months that I had, or over a year that I had talked to the guy. I reached out to this neighbor that we had talked about originally, and I sent him a note. Hey, when can I stop by? We haven't talked in a while. And I went and paid him a visit, and we spent an hour talking. He shared, he's got some amazing stuff that he's producing at his house, from maple syrup that he was able to get from over the winter, to 9 beehives, to kiwi trellises, to a bunch of different stuff. So we're starting the conversation again, and hopefully I'm going to get him into my property so he can help out on some projects. But that first conversation with him helped me spark a conversation with other folks. And yes. But I wasn't the shirtless guy dancing. I can say I was a first or second follower for sure.
Yeah.
So Arnaldo, you doing that yesterday, you created a ripple effect, and I'll let you know now. I was sick yesterday. When you started sharing your story about being on the farm, having that conversation, and then you applied that to your land, and you mentioned elderberry. I'd never heard that before whatsoever, and I was sick yesterday because of you. When I was feeling sick, I went and got this juice. I was like, what do I get? And I saw elderberry, and I was like, Arnaldo said this is good and helps with healing. And so got that because you chose to share your story. So because of that, I am here now, not sounding like a hoarse dinosaur, and can actually speak.
Good to hear. Awesome.
And this is all happening because we dare to reach out, right? It's because we're connecting with somebody, and there's magic in that space. And so maybe somebody else has a story about connecting. They would like to share a ripple effect that happened because you reached out.
Henrik, I have a question for you. That brings up a process question.
Okay.
And that is, do you have your database started? Because when I get through with this, I'm going to expect you to start it, or at least have it, of experts that you can point people to in areas and questions, i.e. the elderberry thing, holistic peelers and those type of things, understand the medicinal, the properties of elderberries and other stuff. Same way with people that are doing garden towers and growing vegetables and things, both indoors and outdoors, and managing sheep and all these different areas that are going to come forward that we're going to be going into for the betterment of all. Have you looked at, or have you considered so far, because it's a big time draw, developing that database of those experts you point people towards?
I have a very long Excel. But it is, the funny thing was that when Linda was doing these color tests of personality with us, later we were getting the results, and Gabby and Linda, and they all thought that I was this blue guy that's really organized, and and my test didn't turn out like that at all. Well, no, if you have something that will work, please tell me.
I can send you something, yes.
So can I jump in on that? So Glenn, so after our training program, the accelerator program that Henrik has mentioned, one of our intention is to be open sourcing this stuff. So it's not like you have to go through our programs to get this. Our programs just help with implementation. And so I have no idea who the experts are in Ecuador. I have no idea who the experts are in New York City, no idea who the experts are in Hamburg, Germany. But what we're teaching is a process to help you learn from those best practices and learn from that local wisdom, so that you can co-create together and tap into the wisdom of what's there. And for you to discover, there's the people in Germany that I need to reach out to. But so that ecosystem mapping and how do we tap into that is the process that we're teaching, rather than this is the list of the 100 experts on elderberry that you need to reach out to. That's yeah.
But I do see a lot of value in what Glenn is putting out there, is because it would help us get to know each other, right? We'll have easier connection happening. So yeah, definitely an asset we would like to incorporate.
case in point is like Dr. Carradine Graves is in Dallas right now, and we're connecting with her and trying to get certain regions set up. I go to a guy by name McKeon in South Africa when I want to know about that type of environment and who's the resident expert there that I need to go to for talking about how to raise cattle and things where you got lions running around eating them, you know. And it's in this world that we're living in now, as evidenced by all of our pictures on this face looking at each other, and that can be a little scary in and of itself. You know, we have the means to reach all the way around the globe to talk to people and benefit on their experience and things that they can offer. So like I said, it's something that's going to take a lot of development, but it's a real asset also.
It is critical that we find our people, absolutely. But yeah, we need to figure out what is it in us that is keeping us from finding those people, right? That's actually really the key point. They're out there and we can help you find them, but something in us is holding back. And getting curious about what that is a really good idea. And should you find any friction there, we are here to help. But Gabby, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just hearing like the contact list and knowing like who the experts are in your area or anything like that. One idea that we have for future website goals is to have really like a storybook where people can see, oh, who's in my area who has gone through this program, and you can read their story and maybe see what their interests are. And people can share whatever they want in there. Like, for example, for me, I'd be like, I study microorganisms in soil. I'm also a project manager, something along those lines. And maybe someone who looks at the website sees like, oh, she studies soil microbes. I want to have a conversation with her. And then you see the positive ripple effects of that. So it's just a different aspect of sharing that contact list with the world, the community, so that they can read people's stories, contact somebody in their area, and have a curiosity conversation and see what comes of it.
Wouldn't that be a beautiful place to end this conversation? I know we can go on and on and on.
I do need to go.
Setting that intention out there to find somebody that you can go out and have a curiosity conversation with, right?
I'm going to bring Gabby down because I got 40 acres here that I need her expertise on right now.
Oh, I'll come down. Just tell me when.
I know. We'll make it happen. I'll have my son fly up and get you if I have to.
Hey, that works too.
Oh boy. Thank you everybody for joining here and bringing your energy into this space and participating in whatever shape or form you are. All you beautiful souls out there, I hope to see you again, and reach out if we can be of any help in one way or another, please. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
This
thank you
was
all.
lovely.
Enjoy your weekend,
Yes.
all of you.
Will
You
do.
too.
Cheers,
Bye,
folks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Donnie, Michelle, this was awesome. I'll see you, Henrik.
We'll see you soon, yeah.